Hello and welcome to Open Your Mind Radio. You have myself, Alan James.
Myself, Stephen George. Good evening.
Good evening. It's Sunday, the 11th of November, 2018. Apparently loads of things supposed to be happening today. One of them, loads of energy is hitting the planet. Apparently, this is what we've been told. Loads of people talking about it. Is it true? We don't know, but there you go. November the 11th anyway. Right, our guest on the show tonight is a chap called Michael Feeley. We're going to be talking about ancient history. And at the end of the show, for about 20-25 minutes, we're going to get Trevor Eivers on from the Open Mind Conference to have a chat about how the conference went and just his feedback on it and what he thought and how things went. So we'll talk to Trevor at the end of the show about that. And before we get on and talk about a few bits and pieces, let's find out about the communication channels.
Okay, here we go.
The communication channels are email info@oymireland.com, by phone 046 927 1212, and you can also contact us direct through the OYM chat room.
Yes, the OYM chat room is available on the website. The website is oymradio.com. You will see the link there for the chat room. If you do have a username and password, you can log straight in and join in the festivities. A big hi to everyone already logged into the chat room. You're all very welcome. That is the place where you can pop your questions for our guests this evening. You can also check out peoplesinternetradio.com. They have a lovely chat room over there also with an equally friendly bunch of individuals. So a big hi to everyone there also. And yeah, if you're already over there, that is another forum where you can ask questions. If you want to ring in, the phone number is 046 927 1212, and outside the Republic of Ireland, it's 00353 46927 1212, and the phone numbers can also be found on the website. Phone calls during the show, phone calls to ask questions are only applicable during the live show. So if you're listening to the podcast, no point in ringing. We also have links there on the website as well for the anti-social media, Facebook, Twitter, the Skype channel, and also the email. The email address info@oymradio.com is the place to fire off emails just to let us know what you think of the show, where you're listening from, etc., or if you have any ideas for future guests. Also there on the links are the MeWe. MeWe is the alternative to Facebook, gathering a lot of momentum. A lot of our listeners and friends of OYM have moved to MeWe. So make the change yourself, move to MeWe. It's ad-free and they don't sell your privacy. So do check it out anyway. What else we have on the website there? We have the usual podcast links also for previous shows, previous shows, and the all-important donate button. If you fancy throwing a few shekels in the tip jar, that is the button to press. And last but not least, we do have the link there down the bottom of the site for the TuneIn Radio Link application. That's a free app for your smartphone or your iPhone, where you can just log in and listen to us all day, every day.
Brilliant stuff. Right, let's crack on a few things just to chat about. On the independent.ie, they said that money seized as evidence by Gardaí goes missing 14 times. No surprise there. Cash being held in Garda stations as crime evidence has disappeared 14 times over a 3-year period, the Labour Justice spokesman Sean Sherlock has discovered. Between the beginning of 2015 and the end of 2017, 14 sums of cash held by Gardaí as part of investigations vanished from storage facilities of Garda stations around the country. Deputy Sherlock has been critical of the lack of information available on the matter and the length of time it took for him to get answers from the Department of Justice on the issue. He first asked a parliamentary question on the issue in October last year, but only got limited information back last week. Gardaí have not released details on where the money has gone missing or how much was involved, saying they cannot do so due to ongoing investigations, and I bet. Yeah, now I'm not obviously, assuming anything at all here, but this has happened in the past where money has gone, and there has been cases where individuals were caught taking the money. Now apparently, any money that's seized, say from drug dealers or crime or anything like that, can't go into a bank account. It has to stay locked up somewhere as evidence, maybe for fingerprints or whatever. And obviously, maybe there's one or two individuals that are always get them in the bottom of the barrel that were attempted, at the money, when the fact it's there. Again, it's speculation and, allegedly, but there have been cases in the press, and you've all seen it, where people have been caught actually stealing money. So that's interesting, that they doing some investigations into finding out about where the money is, and they won't even tell the TD who's involved in it. Well, that's interesting. Steve?
Yeah, news in from BBC.com. It says China's Xinhua agency unveils artificial intelligence news presenter. China's state news agency has unveiled a virtual newsreader sporting a sharp suit and a somewhat robotic voice. Xinhua News claims the presenter can read text as naturally as a professional news anchor, though not everyone may agree. Hello, you are watching English news program, says the English-speaking presenter at the start of his first report. A Chinese search engine was involved in the system's development. I will work tirelessly to keep you informed as text will be typed onto my system uninterrupted, says the presenter in an introductory video. I look forward to bringing you the brand new news experience. Xinhua says the presenter can work 24 hours a day on its website and social media channels, reducing the production costs. Obviously, no need for people anymore.
No need for people.
No.
Basically, let's get rid of the portal people, as they've been called, and we now will employ or use AI instead. Won't cost us anything. They can run 24/7. They won't need a salary, and apparently there's some factories that are automated to the level that they don't need people either. Maybe one person just to make sure everything's okay. It's just getting to that stage. Now, we were told about this before, ages ago, on the show, the amount of jobs that's going to be lost due to automation. And we're seeing it in front of our eyes. So, excuse me, I still have that kind of cough hanging on, even from last week, but we're getting there. So that's a bit frightening that, things are getting more AI and more jobs are going to be going. So, that's going to be a concern. We'll probably see that on RT sometime.
We'll probably see it on OYM sometime as well.
It might be AI, Alan and Steve.
Yeah, absolutely. We won't. No need for us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we might put it, automated. What do we do a pre-record or something, and then just have robots on
Won't
YouTube?
need it. All we need is a script, and the script will be programmed into the PC, and that's it. Job done.
That's it. End of story. Right.
Me and you'll be down the pub licking our wounds.
That's it. No worries. How's your week?
Yeah, my week's been fine. Not too much to report really. I did see something on antisocial media recently in relation to, if anyone has been following this case, they'll know that the Garda Commissioner, that's the police commissioner in Ireland, I think he's retired or resigned or whatever state he's in at the moment, but he's going to be he's going to be ended up in court because of the case against the Garda member, Maurice McCabe. That was kind of big headline news, and we had John Wilson on a couple of times, and John was kind of filling us in on various aspects of the case and exactly how it progressed. But anyway, Martin Callanan, he's going to be in the dock, as they say, but in a nice little twist, the state, from what I've seen on Facebook, and now of course this is it's on Facebook, so I don't know if it's true, and I didn't have a chance before coming up to actually check it out, but according to the news on Facebook, that the state are happy enough to pay for Mr. Callanan's costs, so the state are going to be supporting him financially all the way through this case, which I think is an absolute farce, because the man was found guilty. He was absolutely found guilty, so he should be paying his own costs, I firmly believe. What do you think?
Exactly, totally. I mean, but we see this all the time, and the people that do need assistance in fighting the system have to end up paying it themselves, or become a lay litigant and defend themselves. They can't afford a solicitor. Yep. It's corruption. It is. It's just ridiculous.
Oh, it is. One rule for them, one rule for the rest of us. And just the only other one thing I want to mention is anyone who was at the conference or wasn't at the conference last weekend would have heard our talk. Well, you would have heard the talk if you were there, not if you weren't. But it was the kind of the waking up process talk, and I found myself in a situation in work during the week where I was having a conversation with a lady whom I work with, and we were talking. When I arrived in, the subject was life after death, and I don't know who brought the subject up, but I joined in. And because we had been down there and we had listened to Mary Helen Hensley's talk on her NDE, and I threw that into the mix, and I just said to one of them, well, what about near-death experiences? What do you think of that? And I was told it's a load of B, ! X. And I said, I drew myself up to my full height, and I said, now, is that your opinion, or is that fact? And she goes, oh, that's a fact. And I went, okay, right, so obviously if it's a fact, then you've obviously done the research, and you have the data to back that up. I'm all ears, let me have it. And she says, what do you want? Have what? And I says, well, you said it's a fact. I said, so give me all the facts. I said, because I've spoken to a lady who went through this, and I said to her, it's very, very real. So if you're saying it's a load of bunkum, I says, lay those facts on me. And she goes, well, I don't have any. I says, oh, I'm thinking, I'm stepping into my Allen shoes now, and I go, oh, so it's not fact, it's just your opinion. And she says, well, yeah, I said, yeah, it's my opinion. And I went, right, well, sure, your opinion is not worth the paper it's printed on. I says, give me facts. I know if you're going to say something is, it's a load of bunkum, I said, at least do the research and have the facts to back it up so we can have an intelligent discussion about it. Because if you're just going to give me your opinion, I said, well, I've got facts from people who have been there, seen that, got the T-shirt to say that it's real. I said, and this particular lady who we spoke with, I said, she's got books out, she's got, all the information that you want. And this is I'll send you an email, a link to her books on the YouTube channel. No, I'm not interested, she says. And I went, but we're having a discussion. I like these discussions, that it's very intelligent, and the fact that we can agree to disagree. Where I says, this is it is based on fact, and it's backed up by fact. So will I send you on the link? And reluctantly, in the end, she says, well, fine, yeah, send it on to me. So I sent her a link to Mary Helen's website, and also to a couple of YouTube videos. And so we'll see what happens tomorrow. This was Friday, so I'm dying to see what's going to happen out tomorrow. Yeah, probably nothing, I would imagine.
I'd probably say nothing, but that's the argument. That's it.
Yeah, because normally I don't find myself in a position where I can actually use that little golden nugget of information. But yeah, I worked through the day anyway, so we'll see what happens. Probably nothing, but that's the way it goes. Anyway, how's your week?
See what happens. Well, two things. First one is I attended the parents and teachers meeting, as you do, religiously once a year, and I got into a bit of the discussion with the history teacher. Regarding a project that my son was interested in doing, where my son wanted to take the argument that Hitler didn't die in a bunker. He went to Argentina and survived till 1994 or thereabouts. And he was going, well, there's no evidence there. And I said, well, have you looked at the evidence? Have you looked at this? And he said, well, there's more evidence on the other side. And I said, but of course he'll say that because he haven't looked at the other side. I said, there's a book written by two guys, spent 5 years travelling the world looking at the evidence and the facts, FBI paperwork and interviewing people. The book is called Grey Wolf, and I seen him scribble it down, Grey Wolf, on the piece of paper. But anyway, I wasn't going to get into an argument with the history teacher in front of it. The thing is, regardless of whether he was going to do, a talk on Hitler, he couldn't do it because it was on the curriculum, so he has to do somebody outside the curriculum. But I think his history teacher probably learned a little bit about having an open mind, because I was saying to him about, you have to challenge your belief system. If you don't challenge that, you're going to be, it shows that you're closed-minded. So he learned something, and plus I had a talk with the religious teacher as well, and the
religious teacher's now atheist.
Yeah, religious teacher, yeah. So we had an open-minded discussion with the religious teacher, So
do you not realise you're supposed to go there, just sit down and let them tell you how good or how bad your child is doing, and you're supposed to walk away? You're not supposed to have a conversation.
Yeah.
Did you not get the memo?
Yeah. See, I don't give a monkeys. I don't buy into that crap. I go in and say it the way it is. Actually, the computer teacher. Basically, I said, are you not worried about the dangers of wireless in the school? And he said, and I said, so I told him, I said, microwave works at 2.4 gigahertz, and I said, it cooks food by heating the water molecules, and he goes, yeah, and I said, what's your router running on the frequency? He said, 2.4. I said, exactly. I said, you're getting radiated at that frequency. I said, and you don't see it, you don't hear it, but I said, that's what's happening. That's the concern with Wi-Fi. And he said, if you are really concerned over it with your by all means go and complain, but he was kind of out of his depth, he just didn't get it. But
so it's pretty much this is the curriculum, this is what you teach, and they can't actually think for themselves. Obviously, the teachers.
That's it. Well, I said to him that his website his website is Joomla, and he does a few it's out of date by a few versions, and I just said to him as a bit of advice, listen, I think you should get your website up to date because it's out of date by a few versions. He says, how do I do that? And I said,
oh my God, are you serious?
Yeah. He said, how do I do it? Because it wasn't his website, he didn't design it. And I said, okay, you go to the people who designed the website and tell them that you need to update the website for security reasons.
They must love seeing you coming through the doors.
I'll tell you. Anyway, so that's number one. Number two is the main OYM PC, which I'm using now at the moment, has developed an intermittent fault with the power supply fan. It makes an awful racket. So thanks to your donations, this is one of the reasons why we asked for donations. I'm going to be getting a new power supply fan. I'm going to fit it, and if I have time to set up a camera to do a video on it, I'll try and do a video on it, and I'll just show you us, replacing the fan on the computer. If I have time to do that. But it's really noisy, it's very intermittent, and so I want to do it before it gets worse. Very, very annoying. Anyway, right, let's bring our guest in. Our guest is a chap called Michael Feeley, and Michael is an ex-UK police officer, worked for the police for 17 years, and now talks about ancient history, and Steve has his bio.
We do. Michael is a former UK police officer and now ancient code breaker, who has authored 7 paperback books and several e-books on various esoteric subjects, and is also a public conference speaker. Michael is a multiple paranormal experiencer and has personally witnessed dimensional portals, UFO sightings, day and night, received telepathic invites to attend certain locations, has seen the spirits of British royalty, King Charles I, and has seen E.T. being face to face with, amongst many other encounters. Michael now uses his 17 years of evidence gathering knowledge and investigative training to break many ancient codes and have previously remained a mystery throughout the world. What do the pyramids around the world really mean? Who were the actual characters of the Bible, and what was Stonehenge used for? Did Atlantis and Lemuria really exist? And what do the Sumerian scrolls really tell us? The face of history can now be changed, as Michael demonstrates to you a ciphered code left for us to find within the famous monuments of the ancient world.
Right,
let's get into this.
Sounds very interesting. Good evening, Michael. How are you doing?
Good evening, guys. I'm very well, thank you. Thanks for the invite.
No problem. Listen, thanks a lot for coming on. And before we get into the subject matter, which sounds very interesting, the crossover from you being a UK police officer for 17 years and then you're leaving and getting into this subject matter. I mean, it's a bit of a leap there, because we tend to know that the police forces tend to be indoctrinated, and to get them to open their mind is literally impossible. Maybe, we believe that they use NLP in the training camps for the police, which is a possibility. But so, do you want to tell us about why you left, and basically how you got into the subject matter, the ancient history?
Yeah, absolutely. As you said in the bio at the beginning, I was a police officer in the front line in 2 of England's biggest and major cities, London and Birmingham. And I did 17 years on the front line, where I would deal with emergency calls, non-emergency calls. I would investigate different levels of crime, from the very basic to being the first on scene at a murder and having to coordinate the evidence, etc. And it was as far as I was concerned, it was going to be a career for life. Probably about 10, 15 years left at that stage, and then I was going to retire. And my life, as far as I could ascertain, was planned out by me. But in 2009, or leading up to 2009, I was becoming very, very disillusioned with the way in which politics was hindering the way in which the police force worked. I was being prevented from doing the job that I'd actually joined to do. I was witnessing certain minor levels of corruption in relation to crime figures being manipulated, police response times being deliberately misleading. And it was all to do with manipulating statistics and manipulating figures when the public got involved. And so I was becoming very, very disillusioned with that. But at the same time, I was beginning to experience a lot of what you would describe as paranormal or supernatural or otherworldly or whatever word or sentence or phrase that you would choose in order to describe it. I was beginning to see pretty much everything, every sort of genre within those paranormal spectrums. And it was making me realise there was a lot more to life than I'd originally thought or even believed. So it was almost twofold, where there was the disillusionment setting in, really, really disillusioned, didn't want to be there anymore, completely having my hands tied by politics, coupled with visitations, coupled with witnessing lots and lots of things that most people will never even see or even think of. So the two joint forces were enough to actually make me leave my career for life. What the police force did for me, which stands me in good stead with what I do now, is it turned me into an investigator. And I was investigating things for 17 years, in which I'm able to piece evidence together. I'm able to spot evidence that the average person cannot see. And I was classed as an expert witness in any UK court. So there's a lot of things that he gave me, which stands me in good stead for now. But it was sort of twofold in relation to the disillusionment and the introduction of the paranormal into my life.
Okay, so when you were a serving police officer, did you have any experiences while you were serving?
Absolutely, many. I mean, I was seeing lots and lots of UFOs whilst on duty, recording them, seeing them, trying to work out what they were. I was visited by a Victorian teenager, or the spirit or the energy of a Victorian teenager who'd been murdered by her stepfather in the year 1850. And 159 years later, I was actually approached and asked to investigate her death. On the 9th of February 2009 at 3:30 in the morning, I was taken back 159 years in history to relive the last moment. I was seeing King Charles I as a spirit. I was having lots of visitations. I was having lots and lots of things happening to me whilst on duty and whilst off duty, and that continued to happen once I'd actually left the police force as well. So it began whilst I was still serving, and it continued while I was no longer serving.
Okay, so what was the catalyst that changed? What was the trigger that switched that ability on?
Well, from a very, very early age, maybe even as far back as the age of 6 and 7, I always felt different. I always felt isolated because of that difference. I always began to ask myself adult questions about the world and how it didn't make sense. So I was always different, and I always knew that there was more to existence and there was more to reality that we were being told. So that was really sort of the very, very early signs for me now looking back. And then probably again towards 2009, seeing the last moments of someone's life, and then being given a golden key in the mind's eye, which turned out to be the Gnostic key of worthiness of sacred knowledge. And, finding out from a family tree, looking back at the family tree, that I'm actually a direct descendant of Irish Celtic kings. So there's all these different things that were happening from a very, very young age for me that have sort of formed the fact that I was always an open-minded child. I was always an open-minded teenager, and that open-mindedness went into adulthood. But it wasn't really up until around about 2009 that all this began to happen for me.
Right, okay. Before we move on, have you heard of Gary Heseltine?
Yes, I have.
So have you been in touch with Gary regarding what your sightings and your experiences?
I've attempted to get in touch with Gary, but I've never had any response from him. However, the things that I've seen, the things that I've witnessed, the things that I've been involved, one of them potentially a UFO landing, he should really have responded to my sort of experiences, but he never did for whatever strange reason. But yes, I have heard of him. I understand that he created a a group, especially for serving and non-serving police officers who have witnessed this kind of thing. So it's really sort of a bewilderment as to why he never returned my calls. But yes, I have heard of him.
Okay, well, maybe that's something we can help you with, because we have Gary on. He's been on the show a few times, and he's always up for doing interviews. So, I think, stuff like this should be logged and put down. So we'll see what we can do on that side. So the ancient history, tell us what your take is on it, and why are we being told lies, and what's the truth? I know that's a very big question, and that could, we could fill probably 3 hours with that question. But you obviously start getting into with these experiences you've had, you start getting into ancient history, and now you're realising that what we're being told is all a bunch of lies, basically.
What we're being told at the public levels of religion, the public levels of history, the public levels of any explanation of the ancient past, is a metaphorical cover-up of what is the real truth. And you can trace, when you look at the sacred information that was seen as only accessible to the worthy, to the chosen, when you have the likes of Plato that used to teach sacred geometry to the chosen at his academy under an oath of secrecy, this kind of sacred information about the makeup of the universe and the makeup of the human body was actually present during early Christianity through the Gnostics, and Gnostic simply means to know, or it's divine knowledge. But it was later suppressed by the church, and anybody that would speak in this kind of term would be classed as heretics. Now, heresy, simply means to choose. And for those who didn't choose the teachings of the church, basically were tortured. And from that point, really, we began to have a symbolic, metaphorical, coded world, where metaphors were a way of both hiding knowledge, but it was also a way for the chosen to interpret wisdom, sacred wisdom. Now, the ancient code, and I call it the ancient code because every single civilization that I've looked into have embedded this code within either their monuments or within the sacred scriptures of their religion. But because most people are actually taught the superficial explanations, they never look at a deep enough depth to actually see these metaphors, to actually see these actual truths. So yes, we are being misled, we are being lied to. The whole of history, by the information that I've come across, could realistically be, because the whole of the ancients were talking really about the true essence of our own being, and they were talking about enlightenment, they were talking about consciousness, which is simply an awareness. And when you have an expanded awareness, you begin to know these kind of sacred teachings and this sacred information, and that is really what is being hidden from the public. So when you look at Stonehenge, or you look at the pyramids of Egypt, the pyramids around the world, when you start looking at the biblical text and what it really means, when you start looking at the likes of Easter Island, when you start looking into the sacred lost city of Atlantis and Lemuria, when you take that into mythology and you start looking at King Arthur, when you start looking at the Knights of the Round Table and Merlin, when you start looking at Odin legend, when you start looking into all these religions, when you start looking into even Santa Claus and many Walt Disney children's animations, it is all telling you the same secret message. But because it's covered by metaphors and it's covered up by symbols and codes, and Confucius once said that it is codes and symbols that rule the world, not words nor laws. We live in a world that is encoded with secrecy.
Okay, well that makes sense. I mean, we've talked before about the pine cones in the Vatican and the design staffs and the pineal gland. There's symbolism for that. And then if you go to Egypt, you have the people with capped heads, and then you have people in different sizes, and there's steps that are massive, that are, obviously, steps for, looks like giant people. And there's been reports of people being seen, especially in the Far East, of being at various 10, 12 feet, 14 feet tall. So all this is kind of going on, and people aren't hearing much about it. Obviously, it's all kind of closed down. Well, let's talk about, say, for example, the Holy Grail. We talk about the Grail. The reason why I say the Grail is because we've been told that the Grail is buried in Tara over here in Ireland. But then there's arguments that it's buried in Wales, and then there's arguments that it could be buried in the Far East somewhere. What's your what have you found out about that?
Okay, well, the Holy Grail, the same with all biblical text, with all biblical characters, with all the biblical stories that I've looked into, researched, and been given information on, is all about human genetics. It's all about human consciousness, and it's all about how the genetics of the human body work. So when we have the book of Genesis, that is really telling us it's the book of genetics, the book of genes, and you can go all the way from Adam and Eve, all the way through Jesus, all the way through Mary Magdalene. All of these things are really genetics and consciousness. They're not real people. When you look at the likes of the Holy Grail, Grail comes from the word Graal, which means vessel of God. The Holy Grail will not be found as a physical item, because the Holy Grail doesn't exist as a physical item. The Holy Grail is actually the womb, which is basically, again, all to do with sacred geometry, all to do with the golden ratio, the golden mean. But the Holy Grail is the womb inside the female body. The menstrual blood, or the red wine, is actually menstrual blood that contains lunar energy. Now, this menstrual blood takes us to our endocrine state. Our endocrine state means secretion within. It's our consciousness, the workings and the combination of the three master glands of the third eye. So the Holy Grail is actually the womb. The chalice is a cup-shaped part of the womb in between the ectocervix and the endocervix, which is known as the transformation zone, because the people who drink from the Grail are said to spiritually transform. So the Holy Grail, the same as the Garden of Eden, the same as the Exodus of Moses, will never be a physical item or with physical evidence, because it doesn't exist as a physical thing. It is purely a story. So the Holy Grail is the female womb.
Okay, we've kind of heard differently that the Holy Grail carries, or inside it, is like a crystal, will have the history of mankind there, and because it contains such a high level of energy, that anybody that doesn't resonate with the same energy basically will be taken out, will be zapped.
Well, as I say, every story of the Bible, every character of the Bible, the most famous ones, I can attribute to the workings of the human body. And the Holy Grail, the vessel of God, is no different to that. The Holy Grail is basically the womb, and the red wine, the blood of Christ, is really the menstrual blood of the female womb. And that is the same for the Bible. It is a genetic, a consciousness, a working of the Christ consciousness within, and it's all to do with the human body and genetics. The Garden of Eden, Eden means life, it is talking about the human body, and the Holy Grail, Jesus Christ, Mary Magdalene, Mary and Joseph, it's all the workings of the human body, and that is why the Bible tells you in a hidden way that the kingdom of God is within you. It is giving you the answers, but people need to look, to seek, to find.
Do you think that the Bible is reality, or is just a good story?
No, the Bible at the public levels of religion is a good story. When you start looking at what that good story is actually covering up, it is covering up our salvation, our real way of ascension, our real connection with the higher places. And that is what the Bible is really, really covering up. And the numerology, there's metaphors, there's allegories, there's, the Garden of Eden, the sacred apple that we were told, or Adam and Eve were told not to eat from. And why is the apple so important in that story? Because if you chop an apple up widthways, it reveals the pentagram. The pentagram is reference to number 5, to realise man, to total knowing, and it's all to do with the forbidden place, the forbidden knowledge, the pineal gland, that the system, the brotherhoods, that the ecclesiastical brotherhoods who believe themselves to be of higher sanctity do not want people to enter that kingdom. They want to keep this knowledge to themselves, and they want the rest of us to believe in this story. So yes, that it's superficial levels that are taught in churches, that are taught in by the Vatican, and Vatican comes from Vatica, which means the third eye, hence the reason you see many pine cones around the Vatican itself. They're basically telling you about this sacred knowledge, this forbidden fruit, this forbidden garden, and that is it's all about. It's about keeping and stifling and suppressing the sacred knowledge of ancient days. And for as long as they can keep people off that scent, they will be able to retain this knowledge for themselves, and the rest of us will be sort of encouraged or indoctrinated, or generation after generation will be taught to believe the superficial good stories.
Okay, so do you believe that there are secret societies out there withholding information from the general public, stopping them growing purposely? So they, you know, because we always say knowledge is power, and they have the knowledge and we don't know what's going on. And the best way to hide something is to put it, you know, straight in front of you. But the secret societies, which have been around for years, seem to have a very high level of control. Obviously, Air Show, we've come across a number of guests who will talk about this, and they have an element of control in society and manipulating the population. What's your take on it?
They certainly are. Again, with secret societies, it's more of a society with secrets, and it depends upon at what level you are, what degree you are, depends upon what knowledge base that you have, because everyone is deceiving everybody else, and everybody seems to have sufficient knowledge to fulfill their role, but no more. And when you start getting to the higher levels, you know, the highest public level of masonry is the 33rd degree. Again, that is significant when we maybe or maybe not talk about Jesus Christ later. The number 33 is important because that's the age that Jesus died, and there's good reason for that. So when you start looking at Masonics and things like that, yes, there's a sort of a sinister undercurrent, an overclass that is fooling people, is deceiving people, and is keeping sacred knowledge that they believed was only for the worthy, only for the chosen, and not for the general population. Hence the reason that all of this sacred information was kept under oath, under secrecy, by the Masonic pledge. You know, sometimes to reveal these secrets would be punishable by death. Now, I've had Illuminati groups, I've had high Freemasonic groups approach me and attempt to recruit me into their ranks. I've declined. I've said no. But they have said that the information that I am giving, the information that I've come to, and the conclusions that I've come to is accurate, and it would take an initiate of these secret societies many, many years to actually reach the same level of understanding as I've now attained. So, yes, there is that sinister undercurrent of knowledge being kept away from people, but it's hidden in plain sight by symbols, by codes, by, you know, for whoever's seen the film The Da Vinci Code, that is a pretty good representation of how the world is run, through codes, through algorithms, through symbols, because people do not see the truth, but the truth is hidden within those codes and within that symbology.
Okay, and we've mentioned it earlier at the start of the show, and we hear it on a regular basis. It's all over the internet about the energies hitting the planet and the whole ascension process and our level of consciousness raising the energy vibration. Have you come across that, and what's your take on it?
My take is that everything in the universe is a vibration, is a frequency, is an energy. It's or an electromagnetic force. So everything in the universe attains to one of those things, even light. The physicality, matter, is condensed light, which is a vibration, which is all of these things. So my take is that we are basically vibrational beings, and the body is a bioenergetic communication network. And by that I mean that humans are made of cells, cells are made of atoms, atoms are made of particles, and particles are vibrating energy. If you look at it in computer terms, humanity has a very limited bandwidth. We are deliberately kept at a very limited bandwidth so that we may never expand ourselves, that we may never expand this awareness that people call consciousness. That is done by many different ways. There's obviously the physical element, where you start looking at GMO crops, when you start looking at things in water, when you start looking at vaccinations and medications and things in the atmosphere. But you also have spiritual levels of that, where the whole world is enshrouded in negativity, with negative news, with negative happenings, with keeping people in a trap of work and debt. And slavery has gone from chains, metal chains, to debt, to keeping people at such a low vibrational level that they will always be at a low ebb and a controllable low ebb. I think that certain times are set as some sort of alarm in which there will be an enhancement of energy. You know, the human body has DNA codes as a language. It is a 3 billion letter language, and that is just in the 4 nucleotides of human DNA. When you start scientifically looking at junk, what is known as junk DNA, it is really informational proteins that contain a language that is yet to be activated. So I think that the human body has all of these dormant tools inside it in order for it to attain greatness. But it has been deliberately kept down, it has been deliberately stifled. The vibrations of our expansion are being deliberately limited and being deliberately kept down so low that we never become a fighting force. But I do think that the more people that start to awaken to this kind of sacred information, they start to awaken to the fact that basically being had over, we're being fooled, we're being deceived, and we're basically being imprisoned on our own planet by a select few people who believe themselves to be of higher sanctity than anybody else. And the more people that start to realise this, I think naturally they will begin to expand on all levels of their being.
Yeah, one of the things that, obviously we're aware of, we've been running OYM now for coming up to 8.5 years, and we have seen a massive increase in the amount of people waking up and asking questions. And one of the ideas of the energies hitting the planet and raising consciousness across the planet is the fact that people are beginning to wake up and say, hang on a minute, I'm seeing something here, I need to understand it, because we've seen it, myself and Steve and the listeners who've been tuning into us for a very long time, friends and family who once would have shunned us and laughed at us and said that we are conspiracy theorists, are now asking questions and want to know more about certain subject matter. So it's happening. That awakening is happening. I think we are, like we've said it before, we're on a seesaw, but we have passed over the threshold of the seesaw, and the snowball has gone down the hill, and it can't be stopped. And the old paradigm, the old system is collapsing. And we are going through the birth canal at the moment. It's not easy. For a lot of people, it's not easy. But we are going through the birth canal, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. And I think that's, it's coming down. It's probably in the next few years. But then again, 2020, we've been told could be a very important year as well, because 2020 in itself is 2020 vision. So maybe something big may happen in 2020 that will help or be a catalyst to helping to wake people up. What would be your take on that, Michael?
Again, I think once the higher frequencies connect to the original blueprint, to say we have all the tools that we need for that to happen. It's just reconnecting that circuitry. And my take in that is, I wouldn't be too concerned about years or expectations of years, because they tend to be quite disappointing. What I would say is that more and more people are seeking this information, more and more people are questioning the quite apparent and quite obvious and quite evident fraudulent system. The fraud that's been implemented on the human race is now becoming quite apparent, and I think more and more people are actually starting to look and think things are not right. And when people start to have that kind of awakening, that is really what is known as a consciousness shift. And I think that is happening with more and more people. And for everyone that happens to, then it gets better for the whole cause, for the whole of humanity.
Okay.
So I wouldn't be too concerned with dates.
Yeah, okay. I suppose we won't get tied up in dates. Okay, before we go off to the questions, the question has to be asked. You are a serving police officer and you left the force. Surely you had mates in the police force and are probably looking at you now thinking, Michael's lost the plot.
Again, it's because the police are representative of society. There's obviously a mixed bag. At the time that I left the police force was when the world was going into a manipulated global recession and people were losing their jobs. I decided to quit a secure job at that time and actually leave and resign. So people thought, yes, he's obviously mad. But there's a mixed bag inside the police force. There are some people that agree. There are some people that concede. There are some people that can't see it and seemingly. But that is the same as society generally. But because I'm such a strong-minded, strong-willed person, if I make a decision to do something, then I'm going to do it. And it's completely irrelevant what other people think. Even intimate close members of family becomes an irrelevance as to what they think about it, because that is what I've chosen to do, and there's a good reason that I've chosen to do it. Sometimes only I know the reasons behind some of my decisions, but I made that decision, I did it, and now looking back at what I now know was obviously the correct decision, because I now just see the police force as being a protection racket for a fraudulent system. I see that they're being protection racket for the government. I see them beating down protesters at the likes of Lancashire fracking sites and in Nottingham fracking sites, because they have no knowledge of what they're trying to achieve, not realising or not giving one thought to the fact that them and their families are also going to be affected by what these protesters are aiming to achieve for the good of everyone. And I think now looking back at it, it was completely the right decision.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because maybe if we have members of the Gardaí over here listening to the show and UK police officers listening to the show, that they have to realise that the people who they're protecting are the people who are trying to destroy their lives and their families' lives. They need to realise that and wake up to it. And it'll be too late. If it gets too late, there's no point saying, "Well, nobody told me." All the information's out there. Ignorance is now a choice. All the information's out there. They just need to do the homework and check into it. Right, we'll go over to the questions, and Steve, over to you.
I was just going to say, we've kind of come across this before, whereby someone's job depends on them, being ignorant and not knowing certain information. And I mean, I'm sure Michael, you obviously you made a very brave decision, and some one of our listeners there just said that he's very brave. That's Lynn. I mean, you were very brave to do that. It was obviously a very big decision, a life-changing decision for you. But I mean, when you done that, you made a decision. You walked away from the police force, and you went down the path that you're now on. Obviously there may have been some misunderstanding or some ridicule from former friends / colleagues, but after you've done that, have any of them ever communicated with you and maybe can see things from your perspective, but themselves are not brave enough to make that decision, so therefore they'll just carry on doing what they're doing and dragging the protesters away and all this, even though they may know that the protesters are technically right in what they're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that would be a perfect analogy said about the reality of the situation. People within the police force, many of them, have said to me, and it is true, that if they had something else to do, they would walk out tomorrow. The problem that they have is because the system, how the system is and how the system keeps us all enslaved, is people have to pay mortgages, people have to pay bills, people have to put food on the table for their family. That is the sticking point for them walking through the door tomorrow. If they could find something else, they would leave because they're disillusioned, they're sick of it, they're sick of the politics, as I were. So they understand, or that you're always going to get the ones in there who were there for the fight, who were there for the ego, who were there to put the uniform on for the wrong reasons. But you're always going to get quite the opposite in terms of people with common sense who realise what the protesters are trying to say. They realise that the villains are really in Parliament. They realise these things, but they are stuck in the rut. They are stuck in a place that they don't want to be in. And I think in any of the public services, that would be a mirror reflection of all of the sentiments of all the emergency services, all the public services. So a lot of them wish to leave. A lot of them can see the system for what it is, but they are stuck in the rut because they are stuck in the system of slavery that we're all to some degree stuck in.
Just to kind of throw a figure out there, or even a percentage of the people who you know who may be stuck in that rut and would walk away if they had a choice. I mean, is it a small percentage? Would it be a large percentage? Or if you had to put a figure on it, what kind of figure would we be looking at? A ballpark, as the Americans say.
In terms of frontline staff, probably 80% would walk out tomorrow.
Wow.
That much?
That's an awful lot. That's a high number.
Well, everyone, when I was there, it's been several years since I was there, but I do know from having having contact with people on the inside, it's actually got worse, not better. But when I was there, every single officer that I spoke to was not happy. Every single one of them, except for, the higher senior ranks that were in the offices, and weren't facing the stuff that the people on the ground were facing. Every single one of them was disillusioned. Every single one of them was not happy with something. And it's not just general, human gripes, moaning for the sake of moaning. There were general, genuine grievances. So I would put that as probably as a conservative figure of at least 80% would walk out, had they have something else to walk to.
That's very interesting. I mean, in relation to some of the people now, this is kind of just jumping a little bit off topic, but it just popped into my head and I said I must ask Michael. We've heard a lot of information and there's a lot of science over the past couple of years to back this up. But since the introduction of the Tetra radio system, have you noticed difference? The way people would normally act or be. Have people changed, like the from, how would you say, from being kind of placid to more violent? The only reason I'm asking is because, say, when we know that the Tetra radio system, and like I said, the science is there to back it up, it has changed people. Some people have developed tumours and cancers, and other people have kind of developed changes in the way they would normally act. Like some police officers would now go from 0 to 60, and we feel that they are being affected by the frequencies on the radio system.
Yes, and I think when you start looking at how these frequencies affect the vibrational essence of the body, when you start looking into the science of how human cells actually communicate, because of these outside influences with these frequencies, they're now actually tuning into these telephone masts and things like that, rather than tuning into their own genetics of their own environment. So it is changing the human body, it is changing the mentality. When these radios, these airwave radios, were first introduced in my force many years ago now, the idea was for officers to have a medical, and then 5 years later, 5 years having used the radios, were to have a second medical, so that there was some kind of comparable between before using the radios and 5 years having used the radios. Believe it or not, and it may come to no surprise, that second medical never happened. So there is now no comparable over the health effects of the officers carrying these frequency airwave radios. So basically, it is causing cancers, it is all of these genetic disturbances that some of it is deliberate, some of it is just a lust for this technology. But yes, it is having an effect in several ways.
And also, just to add to that, we know for a fact through Barry Trower, who's a physicist and an expert in this, he said that the frequency of Tetra also causes violence.
Because it affects you, the brain waves, and it affects the way people operate.
Yeah, and we've had Barry on talking about this, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And yes, it does. It does affect the human personality, and it does affect the human health, it does affect the human frequency, and it does affect the deeper genetic communication of the human body.
Yeah. Okay, Steve, do you want to get through the questions there?
Absolutely. Dougie's on the chat room there, and he's wondering, would Michael say that the code is being written, that the code that is being written is light language, as light language is the true human language?
The code is talking about consciousness, and when you start looking at the human skull, the Golgotha, the place of skulls, where our own Christ consciousness, our own Jesus Christ, is crucified and resurrected, which again has esoteric meanings. The skull is the place where we get the light in order to become enlightened. So it is all part and parcel of the same kind of code. It's the same message. The light is what gives us the consciousness. The code is talking about enlightenment and consciousness. So yes.
Okay. And what about the shape of pyramids? Dougie is also saying, what about the shape of pyramids? I.e., said a triangle match the vector. I'll start that question again. Does Michael believe the shape of the pyramids, i.e. a triangle, match the vector spaces in the omniverse? These vector spaces contain self, spirit and souls, past, present and future.
Okay. Well, the pyramid shape, when you start looking at the fabric of the universe, the vacuum of the universe, the fabric of that, the shape of that is a tetrahedron, is the pyramid. When you start looking at the pyramids and why we have pyramid shapes, we have to go back to sacred geometry. The sacred geometry, the triangle, is where matter and consciousness connect to the higher realms. So the tetrahedron is a multidimensional shape that represents consciousness. That is the reason that the pyramids are pyramid shaped. It is basically a representation of consciousness. So the Egyptians were telling us about that inner enlightenment. When you do a map overlay over the Great Pyramid, and I've done this, if you face the human head and put the human head over the Great Pyramid facing north, because the Great Pyramid is due north, because due north is the north gate, is the pineal gland, they have marked the pyramid the exact location of the three master glands of the third eye of the human brain. Where the king's chamber is situated is where the pineal gland is situated. Where the pituitary gland is situated is where the queen's chamber is. And then you have that tower that looks like the Tesla tower, which is the thalamus, which is Horus. So you have Isis, Osiris and Horus, the three main Egyptian gods, which are the thalamus, the pituitary gland and the pineal gland. So that is representing consciousness, and it's actually marking the exact spot of the third eye system, the three master glands of the third eye, which again is all to do with that sight and that consciousness. When we start looking at the subterranean chambers of the Great Pyramid, and when you look at Egyptology programs, they tell you they have no clue as to why that is. Well, I can tell you now that the subterranean chambers represent the subconscious mind, which is the feeder of the conscious mind. The feeder is the good shepherd, because the subconscious feeds the mind with information. So the pyramid shape is sacred geometry, where matter and consciousness connect to the higher realms. It is basically a tetrahedron, which is representing consciousness, and that is why the pyramids around the world are shaped as the pyramid. It is the triangle in geometry, which is the most stable of forms. So it's geometric, sacred consciousness.
Very, very interesting. You've obviously done a lot of study into this. In all this, I mean, you did mention the pineal gland there as well. How important is the pineal gland, and is it kind of just a coincidence that when we have fluoridated water that it calcifies it? Well, they say it calcifies the pineal gland. Is that just a coincidence, or is that being done for a reason? Do you think?
No, it's deliberately being done to close people down, because they understand that if you close down people's chakra system, if you close down people's third eye, that's contained within this third dimensional matrix, this third dimensional reality. For those who open up the chakras, and again, part of the monuments of the world, such as Stonehenge, was a amplification tool in order to open the chakras, in order to achieve this Christ consciousness. If we are closed down spiritually, if we are closed down with the third eye, we are unable to see beyond this reality, and that is the exact intention of why all these things are happening.
Okay, so people should, if you feel that you are in an area that's been kind of over-fluoridated, I know that there are certain things that you can do. Just have a look on the internet. There are procedures that you can do to allegedly decalcify the pineal gland. Anyway, Michael Joan is wondering, do you believe the Bosnian pyramids deserve investigation?
Absolutely. Again, the pyramids around the world are representing consciousness, and some people have actually seen beams of light from the top of the Bosnian pyramid. That is because when you embed stones, these monoliths and whatever, that they absorb Earth's energy, the Earth's ley line Kundalini energy. And what that then does, it transmutes that energy into a linear electromagnetic beam, and that is the beam of light that people are seeing coming from the top of the pyramids. That is an active consciousness Large Hadron Collider, so to speak, which is a particle accelerator. So yes, the Bosnian pyramids are important, the same as the main pyramids, the same as the Egyptian pyramids, the same as the pyramids all around the world, is representing human consciousness in a geometric shape.
Okay, and are there many other pyramids that we know of that are kind of giving off the same light or active in any way?
Certainly the ones that are seen to give off the light are active. To what extent the others are active, anyone's guess. Some of the chambers of the Great Pyramid in Egypt have been blocked, so those chambers have been deactivated. By who? I don't know. But if you imagine that the Great Pyramid, which is the 9th pyramid of 9, and the number 9 is the number of enlightenment, and the number 153 is quite pinnacle in that as well. If you add 1 plus 5 plus 3 equals 9. And Nikola Tesla said, if you only knew the magnificence of 3, 6, and 9, you'd have the keys to the universe. That is why there are 9 pyramids in 3 sets of 3. So all of the pyramids of the world are important, and they are all part of a energetic network which amplifies these energies into particle accelerators, which is basically what Stephen Hawking says is the closest thing we have to time travel. They were power stations that were creating portals, and they were able to intergalactically travel from their pyramids from around the world, and that is the same as Stonehenge and same as other things. So these monuments are encoded with human consciousness, and they were used to enhance human consciousness, and they were also used as a particle accelerator for which people were able to travel to different worlds.
And just remember as well, for everyone who's listening, if you do see light coming out of these pyramids, it's obviously just visible light that we're able to see, but the light spectrum is far greater. I mean, we only see a small portion of it, and I mean, there could be other light at different frequencies coming out of it that we would not see with the naked eye.
It sounds to me that there's a mention of a Stargate there somewhere.
Oh, you wouldn't know, would you?
Don't know, Michael?
Yes, there is. If you look at the shafts of the pyramid, you have the Queen's Chamber going up towards Sirius A. The pituitary gland is known as the Star Chamber of Isis. Goddess Isis is associated with Sirius A. Sirius A was the original Mother Mary, who was meant to have birthed the solar sun, which is the heavenly Jesus. You have the King's Chamber, the shaft points up towards Orion, which again is a Stargate. You have the other side of the pyramid, which goes up towards what is now known as Draco, but in ancient times it would be known as the Serpent or the Cobra. That is a serpent vortex and anti-vortex gateway. You have all of these different places. Stonehenge was a creation of portals. So yes, there are gateways. When the Sphinx lines up, you have Sirius A and the solar sun. When it aligns in Leo, it opens up the Lion's Gate, which is another portal. Some of these portals are guarded, some of them are not. Some of these portals require a certain octave or a certain consciousness to pass, hence one of the reasons the consciousness was so important to these ancient cultures. They were by no means primitive, as we've been taught to believe. They were advanced, or they had access to advanced technology. They were either taught that, or they had the ability to create that. So they were far from pyramids, but from primitive. But there were stargates, and there were also markers and amplifications of the rituals in order to achieve their own inner Jesus Christ, which is Christ consciousness.
Okay. We move on. Moon Girl on People's Internet Radio is wondering, she'd love to hear your views on it. Again, this is something that I don't know. We don't normally kind of ask guests what their opinions are on other people. But Moon Girl is wondering, what are your views on Corey Goode and David Wilcox? And have you seen the Beyond Majestic? I think it's a film the two of them collaborate on.
I certainly haven't seen that film. I've seen in the past, in the distant past, I've seen snippets of their work. As with anybody, I always have a precautionary look at things and skepticism or a reluctance to sort of engage 100% in what they're saying. I do have my thoughts and my feelings in relation to a little bit of suspicion, but I do think that a lot of the things that they are saying will turn out to be correct. But it has been a number of years before since I've looked into their work, so I don't know anything that they've been saying recently.
Okay, that's a fair point. Moon Girl also said earlier that you sound like you may know or be aware of Nassim Haramein. Harriman, is it?
Yeah, Harriman, yeah.
Yes, I am certainly aware of him, and I've seen some of his work in relation to the subatomic world and protons, etc. So yes, I am aware of him.
Okay. Dougie's back on. Dougie says, you can feel energies and frequencies in certain places without seeing lights. He says most high UFO hotspots contain a lot of frequencies. Yeah, I suppose that would make sense, wouldn't it?
It does. The whole reality, the whole world, the whole universe is a frequency of different degrees. So, for argument's sake, when I've been inside a recently formed crop circle, the energies are a static, warm, buzz-like energy. Certain ley lines of Earth are a static buzz energy. There are certain points of interest. When you look at the meridians of the human body, you also land also has meridians, it also has ley lines, it also has a chakra system, which is an energy system. When you look at the African prime meridian, which is the major ley line that goes through Africa, where you look at where the Giza plateau is, it is where the third eye is situated. When you look at where Alexandria is in Egypt, it is where the crown chakra is situated. So these monuments were placed on the chakra systems of the earth that mimic their real representation. So the Great Pyramid Giza Plateau was situated on the third eye of the African prime meridian ley line of the land. So yes, there are energy focus points, there are enhanced energy at certain other points, but the whole of the world, the whole of the universe has a vibrating frequency.
Okay, Derek was on earlier. He said, with the serpent tempting Eve, how does the serpent end up on the side of ambulances, whereas the two serpents intertwined represent the kundalini and the pursuit of energies rising through the chakras to attain a state of bliss? What's Michael's take on this?
Well, you have different serpents. You have the kundalini serpent, which is the dormant chemical fire energy, which is the serpent energy that lays dormant in the root chakra. The root chakra is known as the underworld. That is the fire of hell. So hell is not an actual place. He's talking about the chakras. That kundalini awakens. It goes up Jacob's ladder, which is the human spine, through various rituals. That then enhances and goes through to awaken the third eye. But you also have the Ida and the Pingala. And the Ida and Pingala are the lunar and the solar nerve. It is the positive and the negative serpent of the body. That is what you see on the side of ambulances. That is the Ida and Pingala, the Mary and Joseph of the human body. The plexus, which is known as the manger. That when those two nerves meet at the sixth chakra, which is the third eye, the pineal gland, hence the reason that on the likes of the Tutankhamun death mask, you will see two serpents at the position of the third eye. What that is telling you is when those two Ida and Pingala nerves, those two sacred rivers of energy, meet at the third eye, the pineal gland, in a state of balance, there will be a consciousness fusion, there will be an awakening, and that is what that particular part of the death mask of King Tutankhamun and others is really telling you. So you have the serpent energy that goes up the spine, and you also have the Ida and the Pingala, and you have the likes of the cave of Brahma, which is the third eye. You have the abode of Allah, which is where the three sacred rivers meet, which is the Sushumna, which is the Ida and the Pingala. all of these things, all of these ancient cultures, when you look at Quetzalcoatl, which means the precious, or its alternative name, which is Kukulkan. Kukulkan basically means, when you break it down, the serpent at the base of the spine. So Quetzalcoatl is talking about Kundalini energy. So we have all of these serpents. The serpent of Eden is on the tree of life, is the Kundalini around the human spine. And the knowledge is the information within the pineal gland, which takes you to the connection to the higher knowledge of the heavens. The apple is an allegory for that knowledge, for that information, because inside, when you cut it widthways, it reveals the pentagram, and the pentagram is a realized man, total knowing. That is the whole story of the Garden of Eden. Eden is life, Eden is the body, Adam is the atom, and Eve is nuclear fission, which is the extraction of an electron. An electron has a negative charge, which is why Eve was seen as a negative influence on Adam, on the atom. It's all to do with genetics, it's all to do with an awakening, and it's all to do with that Christ that each and every one of us has, and each and every one of us has that potential.
Jesus, you've certainly done a lot of research. I have to say that, Michael. It's very interesting. A lot of interest coming in on the chat room there. I don't claim to understand a lot of what you're speaking of, but it sounds very interesting. We'll continue on with the questions anyway. Peter says, some people put small pyramids under their bed. Is this a good idea? They report headaches from it. Is it doing something good for them? And I just want to add my own piece onto that as well. Alan and I have some shungite. And I think Alan, you have what's you doing there? That's not the shungite. It's that's organ.
The orgonite.
Yeah. We have some orgonite and some shungite pyramids here as well. I'm just wondering, like, in relation to Peter's question, pyramids, should we be having them? I mean, are they going to do things that we wouldn't be aware of? Are they going to draw in energies, give off energies?
The answer to both of those is yes. They can draw in energies. I think when some people who are experiencing in headaches are experiencing some kind of awakening in their pineal gland, which is, if you look at the Hindu bindi, which is the red dot, it's basically in the centre of the two physical eyes is where you have the third eye. If you're getting an headache in that area, it can sometimes be reminiscent of that third eye awakening, opening up to some extent. I think the problem is that we are messing with things that we don't necessarily understand. It's like, I was once invited to take part in a magic sort of camping holiday, dealing with magic and dealing with magic and ley lines and energies, and I refused to do it because I didn't understand what I was doing. I didn't understand anything about it, and I think it can be dangerous to start messing with the unseen, of which you have no knowledge of. If you are going to do these things, I think it's quite prudent to start looking into, or at least researching, exactly the kind of rituals that you're doing, because we don't know if we're doing anything good or if we're doing anything bad. The pyramid itself, as I've told you about and come to the conclusion of, is in geometry, is all to do with consciousness. So the pyramid per se is a positive thing, but if it's used in the wrong hands for the wrong reasons, for people who don't necessarily understand what they're doing, it can turn into a negative thing.
Okay, I just want to. I have to read this out because Chris just wrote in there, and he said, Michael, he woke up and there was a melted triangle of Toblerone stuck to his face. And he's just he's wondering, is that going to be bringing in some negative energy? I know you shouldn't be putting chocolate up there, Chris.
No, we don't know what you're doing with Toblerone in your bed.
No, and Dougie says the pineal gland is like a Wi-Fi receiver. That's very interesting.
Well, we need to definitely unblock the pineal gland with the calcification with the fluoride and everything else, because that's going to be the very important. That's their kind of receiver for everything that's going on. And if the energies of the planet are raising, and more people are beginning to experience different things, it's all part and parcel of it. So we have to kind of clean our pineal gland if we can. We have about 5 minutes left, Michael. So if you have quick questions there, Steve, for Michael.
Okay, we'll go top to bottom. Dougie, I'll just go through a couple of comments to get them out there. Dougie says the police spend too much time now on monitoring the internet for so-called hate speech instead of being on the beat and treating real crime. Where are we? Chris says, I don't know, that's a question, we'll come back to that. Dougie also says junk DNA is dormant DNA, which is activated by light. Yeah, that's very interesting. He says the language of the Omniverse is binary. All sounds, letters, and numbers can be converted to binary. Okay, thanks for that, Dougie. And Joan. Joan was just wondering earlier on, if the so-called elite of the church want to keep us in this form as they have been doing, what would be their reason? What do you think is their reason for this, Michael?
Well, I think that some people are control freaks, for want of a better expression. I think some people are materialistic, whereas in the ancient past, and when you look into the works of Plato and Pythagoras and people like that, they believed at that time that all was mind, but now we believe that all is matter. And matter is material, it is materialistic. So I think when you have a materialistic world where people wish to control the resources, where they wish to have materialistic short-term gain, when they wish to have power and control, they formulate a system for themselves to accomplish those desires. And they, as I say, that they genuinely believe that they are elite, means God's chosen ones. They believe themselves to be the chosen ones. They believe that Prometheus gave them the fire of the gods, and he gave it to the rulers of earth. The fire of the gods is wisdom, it is knowledge. It was never meant for the population as a whole. It was meant for the chosen secret initiates. And that is the system that we have in place. Going back to a little bit of titillation about the Toblerone, even the Toblerone has symbolic meaning, not because of the pyramid shape, but if you look at the Toblerone packet, you will see a mountain, which is symbolic of a higher awareness, of a higher consciousness, and you can also see, and just make out, a bear on the mountain. The bear is symbolic in spiritual animal terms as innermost thoughts. It is the King Arthur, it is Arthos, it is the bear. King Arthur, again, is all to do with consciousness and extracting the consciousness, extracting the knowledge as the chosen, the Excalibur, the ex-Cos Libertarius, liberated from the stone, extracting information as a chosen person. So this undercurrent, this overclass of people, wish to keep this sacred knowledge to themselves for their benefit.
Okay, so you know what's interesting, Michael? Somebody had posted up a picture of a Toblerone today on Facebook, completely irrelevant to, this interview and what we'd be talking about. Isn't that just uncanny? And they talked about the mountain and the bear and everything else on the Toblerone. Quite interesting. Maybe just some synchronicity there somewhere. Michael, we've reached that time. Thank you very much for coming on the show. Great information there for people to go back and listen to and obviously explore and do some research on. We'll pass you over to Steve. Steve's going to get all your contact details and so people know where to find you on the big wide web. Steve.
Yeah, it's great information, Michael. It's very interesting. Obviously, we're going to have to do this again because I know there's a lot more avenues that we could have went down and there's a lot more questions that we didn't get to, and I do apologise for those people who did ask questions. We haven't actually got to them yet because obviously time is against us. But for people who want to find out more, Michael, do you have any links to a website or Facebook or anywhere where the public can go and get more information?
Yeah, absolutely. My website, and there's a contact form on there as well, different things to sign up to, is www.michael-feeley.com. I'm also on Facebook as well, Michael Feeley Author, or if you just type in my name, I will come up on other pages as well. So there's several sort of roads to get to me.
Okay, great stuff.
Brilliant stuff. Okay, Michael, just stay with us there for a minute. We're just going to go off to a musical break, and we'll be back after this.
This is Open Your Mind Radio on OYMradio.com and UnitedWeStrike.com.
Okay, we're back. Great information there from Michael Feeley. Michael-Feeley.com is the website, and that is up on the chat room there. Do check out the website there, very worthwhile. And a bit of a lovely day there. I just play that song for Chris. Chris knows what that means. Anyway, Alan.
Okay, brilliant. Right, our next guest, we're going to bring in Trevor, who was in charge of and taking care with his team of the Open Minds conference down in Waterford last weekend. It was a great 3 days of information and loads of guests and great fun and great just hooking up with people, like-minded people, and talking about everything that went on. And I'm sure Trevor was stressed over the 3 days, but you pulled it off, did a brilliant job. So we'll bring Trevor in and have a chat with him. Good evening, Trevor. How are you?
Hi, Alan. Hi, Steve.
Hi, Trev.
All right, Trevor. Now, I assume being stressed is an understatement due to the conference, because obviously the issues that you had at the start of the year with the weather and having to postpone it and then move it down to the end of the year and then organise the whole lot again. It's like you had 2 conferences in 1 year.
Yeah, the conference was 18 months altogether in planning. And basically, I've been eating, sleeping, drinking every single day at the conference. And it's been, taking up my life, really, taking over my life. Part of me was glad it was over come Monday.
Yeah, but it was a brilliant weekend. Great speakers, loads of people there, loads of information shared, a few drinks drunk, apparently. On the Friday night, I think.
You'd know all about that, wouldn't you?
Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. There's no evidence, apparently. There's no video footage whatsoever. I don't think so, anyway. But no, I mean, fair play to yourself and the team who were involved and organised it. And now that you're kind of a week since it's been over, and I won't say we're going to do a post-mortem, but how did you feel about it? How did you feel it went, and what were the highs, what were the lows?
It couldn't have been any better, really. It was a fantastic weekend, and all 18 talks were at least good, and most of them were excellent. I was so proud that of the diversity of the speakers was just fantastic over the weekend. The music, the yoga, the meditation, it all made for just a fantastic weekend, and it really couldn't have went any better.
Okay, and was there any kind of, hindsight is a great thing, and it's only obviously after the fact that you look back and go, oh, I wish I did that differently. Is there any kind of things that you might say, well, if I do it the next time, or if we do it next year, I would change X, Y, and Z?
Yeah, the main thing is definitely I wouldn't take on so much myself, and my own kind of responsibility with it. Because it did take over my life a bit for 18 months, and if it was to go ahead and do another one, it would definitely be more of a professional type of a committee and to be formed, where the emotional kind of weight of the conference would be kind of more broadly distributed, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, totally.
So that's one of the things, because it has, the last week, I've been off Facebook, and I intend staying off it for the next couple of weeks as well, because I've just been, resting, and now it's time to focus on my family and focus on my business, because they were actually, when the conference, the last 18 months, were coming second and third. So I need to basically get back in touch with my priorities in life and just refocus a little bit.
Yeah. So, obviously, and give time to the family.
So that's that. I mean, that's the main thing personally. But the weekend itself, there's little things here and there. But overall, I mean, it can always be done better. And we did get some feedback over the weekend of how we can improve it, such as name tags and little things like that. But overall, I mean, the quality of the speakers from the Friday when it kicked off at 1 o'clock to the Sunday at 7 when it finished was just, phenomenal, really. Covered everything so much, and it was fantastic, really, to have that 3 days where people were coming together like minds as well, it was just a great buzz in Dooley's. As you know, lads, you were there, so
Yeah.
it was just a great buzz and a great feeling to be with like minds and to be learning so much in terms of like knowledge and information.
Yeah.
Just fantastic.
No, brilliant.
Can I just say, Trevor, I don't want anyone to think that the conference was just a conference that was, kind of spread over 3 days. It had a beginning, a middle, and an end. I think it was much more than that. The conference, there was a great buzz, there was an energy, and I firmly believe that the energy that was raised, the consciousness that was raised over those 3 days, is reverberating around the universe. I don't believe it wasn't an isolated incident. I think what you done and what the team done over those couple of days and brought together it's resonating. That there is a frequency attached to that. I believe it anyway.
Do you want to say what you said to me and the wife and that on Friday night? You know, for a group of guys.
Oh yeah, I said, Alan, stop drinking. No, do you know what I actually said, and this is true. You were there, Trevor, when myself and my wife decided that it was time to hit the hay. And for anyone who wasn't there, it was around about that time Alan said, yeah, I think I'll join you.
Yeah.
And I said,
I'm not going to the same room though,
no,
you know.
But we were walking away, and I commented to my wife, and I said, have you ever witnessed that before? And she said, what? And I says, there was about 7 or 8 of us, lads around it. I said, there's a group of men around the table. We're all talking about stuff that actually matters. No one is talking about sports, the football. No one is saying, oh, look at your woman over there. There was none of that. It was just pure, intelligent conversation among people. I mean, as I even said about Mick, I mean, Mick was showing us pictures of his newest baby. You know, I mean, that's something that was very personal to Mick. And, you know, normally that's kind of associated with women. You know, women would share. But I'm not saying we're effeminate in any way, but, I mean, it was just a group of men. There was a consciousness, there was a frequency, there was a vibration, and it was there. It was love. I suppose in one form it was just love.
That's right.
Filled the room, yeah.
And that sums up the whole conference in a nutshell. Because, like, you know, from the very moment, right back before the first one, you know, the intention behind the conference is to look at the bigger picture. And, you know, in a world like, you know yourself, like at the moment, we live in a world where, like, most people have the mentality of what's in it for me. And it's great to be able to be part of something that, you know, we've achieved something for the greater good. Do you know?
Yeah,
Does
no,
that make
totally.
sense?
Yeah, no,
So,
totally.
for the greater good and the bigger picture, and to lift hearts and minds. And when we come together, you know, the information was unbelievable. As you said, like, the people coming together, there's so many new friendships being made, and different connections, and people meeting Facebook friends that they hadn't met, you know. And, you know, I've been saying this all along, that you just can't be in a world that's constantly trying to divide us and disconnect us, like, to come together in person, in the physical. Like, you just can't beat that. You really can't.
And you know what?
The energy that's created.
You know what's good as well? A lot of people are used to, I was thinking about this the other day, a lot of people are used to going to speakers or concerts. And yes, you go along and hear the music and hear the speaker, but a lot of the time, they do the talk and then they go off and that's it, you don't see them. Or they do the concert and they go off and don't see them. At the Open Minds conference, everybody was approachable. You know, all the speakers were approachable, and anybody could go up to the speaker and talk. I know that after we did their talk on the Saturday morning, we had a few people come up to us, and we were just generally chit-chatting about, you know, bits and pieces.
There was no airs or graces.
No, of course
everyone
not, no.
was just, we were all on the same level.
Well, the reason why we're on the same level is because we're fighting the system.
Yep.
And we're not, nobody's getting paid. Nobody has a salary. I know there's people have books and they're selling books, and, you know, and that's fair enough if that's, you know, what they want to do to help pay their mortgage and stuff like that. But generally, people aren't getting a big corporate salary. So there was no airs and graces, which I thought was great.
That's right, and that's right. And another thing as well is that, as I mentioned, the diversity of the topics and the subjects. I think there was something in it for everyone. So, like, you had, like, you know, your political real life stories, And then you had your more conspiracy down the rabbit hole speakers. And also, like, there was very much a spiritual aspect to the weekend as well. So, like, I think it was like just a great mix and something for everyone. And that was like the ethos of the conference, where we didn't want people leaving the event feeling, oh, you know what, the world is going to hell in a handbasket, let alone me, what can I do? We wanted the opposite of that. So people are leaving thinking, am I empowered now? And I've really learned something over the weekend that I can take on board and apply to my own life, you know? So it's a different, like, the dynamic of this conference is very much about empowerment.
Yeah, no, I will say, and I think, you know, what we found when we were on the stage talking, this is just my own personal opinion and experience, is that we got up on Saturday morning, we were the first up, and seeing other speakers in the audience who, the most of them, if not all of them, were all on OYM at one time or another, was quite just humility. You know, I was feeling very humbled at the fact that we were up on stage, being able to do a talk, and all the other speakers that who've been on OYM were sitting in the audience listening to us talk, and that was quite humbling for me, anyway.
Absolutely, and I think there was a theme over the weekend. I mean, with the messages, like, I was very happy also with the flow of the schedule, how it flowed through the Friday, Saturday, and the Sunday.
A lot of people actually said that, Trevor. I heard that mentioned as well. That people said that you couldn't have planned it better. Like, one speaker complimented the next speaker, etc.
That's right, and that was like meticulously thought out. Basically, that was the plan, and thankfully it worked. So that was like one of the things that we're really, like, proud of, that worked so well. But, like, the three elements of the weekend was, like, number one, you have, like, the speakers, and, you know, to get so many amazing minds, both locally, nationally, and internationally, like, in Dooley's Hotel over the weekend was amazing. The second element of it was the audience and the people who came, which was just fantastic. As you mentioned, Steve, like, there's right buzz. The crowds were great all weekend, as well, which was great. And the third element then is the actual, like, the team that helped over the weekend, which everyone worked great together, and, you know, I think made it very accommodating for everyone. So all in all, like, you know, it's very easy to kind of look at the negative and say, okay, we didn't do this and didn't do that right, but I think we got most of it right. And for a bunch of kind of amateurs that have come together to do something outside a day job, like, I don't think we done too bad, you know.
No, I think you done well, and I think each year, if you decide to do it next year, you're going to grow and you're going to find different ways of doing things, and then just to improve on each year, because that's how you grow. I will say to the listeners of OYM that I have asked Trevor for the master copy of our conference, and we just need to do a little bit of editing. But if we get it off Trevor, we'll stick it up on OYM on YouTube, and then people can see our conference. For people who couldn't make the conference, I know some people do not want their conference footage put out there. So what's the situation with that?
Yes, one or two people speakers have requested not to have their footage showing publicly. So that's okay, you know, that's fine as well. But over the next couple of weeks and months, like, you know, we're going to be slowly getting the videos out there, most of them. And there's only a couple that have requested that. So most of the videos, there was 18 talks altogether. So most of those will make their way online at some stage.
Yeah. Well,
so that's good. I mean, Mark Devlin's presentation is already out there. I see it from yesterday. So Mark Devlin, The Musical Truth, which was on the Sunday, he done a 2-hour talk, Mark. And so his talk is already out there.
Okay, well, that's good. Well, 18 speakers, so you're probably 14, 15 of the speakers who you will have on online?
Yeah, well, at the moment 16. The 16 of the talks of the 18 are going to be going up online.
Okay, Brilliant
So
stuff.
I haven't really got round to it. I mean, like the last week, to be honest, I've been refocusing, I've been paying much more attention to my kids. Like I have two small kids, Emma 5 and Owen 3. And to be honest, a couple of weeks before the conference, like it was so busy with that look, I need to get back and refocus and start paying them some attention, And also, like, I have a hypnotherapy business as well, and that takes a huge amount of time and effort. And so with the conference, it was like, as I mentioned, like it does take up, over your life, like,
Yeah, it does.
Like I put every last ounce of energy into it. I really, really gave it everything. And as you know, like with the bus moment, there was so many emotional, like it was an emotional roller coaster, you know?
Yeah.
And so once I finished, there was a couple of days where, like, I didn't want to even think about it. People were asking me, and I just look, it's time to I want to take maybe a couple of weeks and even a month or two to kind of, do other things now and to focus on other things,
Yeah, definitely. Well, one thing about when you're booking an event with guests, you're dealing with a lot of different personalities. Well, have different requirements. And it's like, OYM, when we're booking guests, sometimes it's the same problem that we have. Guests have different requirements, or, they can't make certain dates, or, they might forget that the interview is going to be on. And so you have to kind of treat everybody with kid gloves, but send them reminders and just assume that they might have forgot the interview. Now, I know that in some cases with OEM, we have some great guests who are bang on time and know exactly what they're doing. And there's other guests, unfortunately, that do tend to say, oh, I forgot we had an interview, and they didn't have anything scheduled in. And I'm sure you've had your fair share of issues with the guests, but then it's all part of the learning curve anyway, isn't it?
I have basically a checklist. And ideally for every speaker, like you're looking at, right, what knowledge are they bringing to the table? Right, number one. And that's very important. And number two is, are they good public speakers? You might need to consider that as well. And number three, I think it's also very important, is, are they actually, a nice person, and are they nice people, and are they easy to deal with? Or are they going to bring like a massive ego and all the rest of it to the table?
Yeah.
And you don't want that. So it's a mix of things, Like we had a couple of speakers this weekend that are just, fantastic public speakers. But we had a couple of speakers, well, that maybe aren't so good at public speaking, but they still had a story to tell.
Yeah.
But I have to say, this time round, like all 17 speakers, because Andy Thomas gave 2 talks, were very good, and they all really made the conference the success that it was, and no complaints in that end. So it all worked out great in the end.
Yeah, no, brilliant. And obviously, what's your plans for next year? Have you thought about it? Are you thinking next year maybe not, or is that something that you just leave for now?
To be honest, as I mentioned once or twice here already, my main feeling this week is that I want to rest and, reprioritize my life a little bit for the next couple of weeks and maybe beyond. But yeah, we are meeting Dooley's Hotel for a feedback meeting, I think next week. And I've already met with John and a couple of the team. We're meeting pretty regularly. They're friends anyway, Alan.
Yeah.
So I'm John Payne's a good friend of mine, and we're constantly meeting for coffee, and we're in touch. And Jackie, Ray, Anne-Marie O'Brien, Nathan Phelan, and more. They're friends, local here in Waterford. So we kind of just keep in touch and kind of meet even outside the conference. But for the moment, we have dates for next November penciled in. I think they're something like the 8th, 9th and 10th. They're booked in from Dooley's next November for the 3rd conference. But to be honest with you, that was kind of just, a little bit pressurized to come up with those dates, because with the conference just finished last weekend, the first thing now that I'm going to do personally anyway is take a long break from this stuff. And because you know yourself, Steve, as well, and Alan, you do too, that like you need break from this stuff as well. I mean, like otherwise it'd drive you on the bend, you know.
Yeah.
And so like every day for the last 18 months, this was kind of part of my kind of consciousness, you know. The phone is ringing, like you're doing everything you absolutely can to make the event a success. Marketing, advertising, hotel, the speakers, as you mentioned, coordinating them, insurance, leaflets. I mean, there's so much like involved. Like people don't realise what's involved in actually putting on such an event. It's a massive undertaking, you know, and it does have an effect on the nervous system. It really does.
No, big time. I'm going to put it down to, and I'm not speaking from experience, but it's probably a bit like having a baby, you know that? Like, you know, you have the baby, you know, and there's a bit of shouting and screaming, and there's, I won't do this again, that's it. And then after a period of time of a few months, you're thinking, I think we'll have another one.
Let's have another one. Yeah.
So I think that's going to be a case. We'll give you a few months, Trevor. Let you chill out and relax, and you'll turn around and go, I think it's time to have another one.
So no, as I said, I think what was created last weekend is resonating, and I believe it will come back again. I know people are kind of probably, you know, feeling a little bit deflated now after the whole thing, because it's all ended after, you know, all the promotion and the anxiety and the stress building up to it, and now it's all finished. But let's just keep those dates open for next year anyway, because I don't know, I'm gonna just kind of put it out there to the universe that there will be another energy, there will be a wave. You're talking about waves hitting the planet, there will be a wave hitting the planet, and I reckon all the people who were involved, and I have to say, Trevor, and it's echoed here on the chat room as well, there was an absolutely fantastic team behind the organising this. You definitely have a team of great people there, and I'm sure if it's meant to be, it will be. You know, let's just wait and see.
The team, I have to say, you know, just absolutely fantastic, just brilliant, and I'm so proud and humbled to be friends of all the team that were part of last weekend. You know, it's just a privilege. But first of all, as I mentioned, like I definitely need to bring the wife out even to the cinema, or she'll kill me, because you know, as I said, that it's become an obsession. The Open Minds conference was my obsession for the last while. So I need to take that little break and kind of like, you know, recharge the batteries and kind of go away, and then kind of we'll come back again. But those dates are there. And the main difference, as I mentioned, like, you know, we're going to have next time round more of, you know, a formal type of committee type thing, you know. And to run it more professionally. Because, like, it just can't go on indefinitely with just, you know, not to, like, I think the lads have helped and done fantastic, but the emotional weight was very much me, you know, and that can take its toll after a while, and, you know, you're making all these hard decisions and hard calls, and you're trying to, you know, like, basically be the catalyst to keep everything together. And so, like, there was such a basic sigh of relief. Like, I was very emotional on Sunday night when it finished. And I just palmed out and slept for 11 hours. I was absolutely knackered, do you know?
Yeah, no, totally.
Really tired.
But listen...
But it's at the same time glad at the achievement. I mean, you know, to be around so much special people, as I said, like the speakers, the audience, and the team as well. It's just phenomenal. Like, and even I'm even still digesting the information over the weekend.
Yeah.
You know, what an amount of information that was, you know, given out the weekend. Is like, I mean, you'd write 3 books, it wouldn't fill 3 books, you know.
Well, the thing is, it'll be out on DVD soon, or out on the internet soon. Right, Trevor, we're going to have to let you go because we have to finish up the show. But thanks a lot for coming on, much appreciated. I'm going to pass you over to Steve if there's any links you want to give out there. Steve.
Yeah, Trevor, absolutely fantastic. Chris just said in the chat room there, Trevor had a team, but the massive work was done by him, and we all appreciate it. We definitely do. Any links you want to throw out there, Trevor, for the listeners, so they can check out and get some more info?
Yeah, well, we also have the web page. The website there is openmindsconference.com. And if you go to the website, we also have the Facebook page. Get us on Facebook, Open Minds Ireland Conference. And I want to thank you guys, Alan and Steve. I want to thank you for what a fantastic talk you done last Saturday at the conference. It was brilliant.
Well, we want to thank you for that brandy glass full of brown M&Ms as well.
Yeah.
We don't have any special requests.
No. No, listen, thanks a lot. We enjoyed it. It was great. I just wish I wasn't bunged up with a bloody cold. But it was great fun, and we enjoyed it. And it's great to be able to, do talks like that, because they're very rare that you get the opportunity, especially in Ireland, to do them. So it's great to be asked to come down and be appreciated for doing it. So thanks very much for that. But Trevor, stay with us there. And we're just going to go up to a musical break for a minute there, Trevor. Just stay with us there for a minute, and we'll be back after this.
This is Open Your Mind Radio on OYMradio.com and UnitedWeStrike.com.
Okay, and we're back. Trevor Eivers Open Minds Conference. The link is up there in the chat room, so it's the openmindsconference.com. You can check out the website there for some information. And fingers crossed, as they say, for the Open Minds 3 next year.
I think the idea of him getting people to have badges is a good idea, because there were a lot of people there running around, and for people who didn't recognise anybody else or Facebook friends or whatever, the badge would be handy,
Yeah, well, you will recognise when you walked into the room.
Yeah.
When the lady, she done that bowing action.
Bowing action, yeah. Well, no, she said she thought we were going in as people for the audience, and I just said, we're Alan and Steve from OYM, and then she started doing the bowing action for some reason.
That was weird.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never seen myself as a religious deity, but there you go. Whatever takes your fancy, No, it was great. It was very humbling that we could actually get up and do a talk and talk about the fluid belief system and the waking up process, because we do feel, both of us feel, it's so important. And Andy Thomas, who's one of the speakers, did come up to me after he was in the audience. He was listening to our talk, and he came up after and he said, you know what? He said, you're the only guys that are actually talking about this stuff. He said, everybody talks about the content, but he said, you're the only guys I've come across that actually are talking about the psychology of how to get there and how to deal with the content. And I thought, well, that's nice. I've looked at a number of conferences, the AVs and a lot of other speakers on the internet, and I haven't actually seen any, if not very few, people actually talking about the psychology of how the mind works and the waking up process. So, and I think it's so important to bridge that gap. Because you can fight all night about whether the moon is made of cheese, but you have to get into the psychology of how the person's mind works. Steve talked about it earlier. He used the system on the Garland work, and he challenged that to tell, to say whether it's an opinion or whether it's a fact. If it's a fact, give me the evidence. If it's an opinion, I'm not interested.
And it's great that you can do that. I mean, the fact that, it's just a little piece of, a couple of words that come out of your mouth, whereby when someone is spouting off and you say something, they say, that's a load of BS. Is that your opinion, or is that fact? Because obviously it's fact, you can back it up.
Exactly. That's it. And that's it. So, deal with the actual psychology of how the mind works. Because some people perceive not knowing something as a weakness. And what they do is they cover it up, because they don't want to be seen as not knowing about it. Also, the programming kicks in, and the answer is no before it's yes, because they don't entertain the thought without accepting it. And when you know and apply that psychology, when you're dealing with people and trying to open their mind, it's amazing when you see they're really thinking, because you've stopped arguing or debating over the content, and you're actually debating whether they have an open mind or not. And then you're actually explaining to them that, well, obviously you don't have an open mind because you can't entertain the thought without accepting it. And if you're only giving me your opinion, excuse me, and it's not facts, then I'm not interested in your opinion. Show me the facts, because I can give you the facts here. It's very straightforward, but it's a great way to deal with people who are calling you out on the information that you're talking about. So there you go. Right, okay, the guest next week. Now, we were going to have a lady on, a Dr. Q, Quilla, and she's in Australia, and it was information that we got regarding these special patches that you use. And I kind of said to her, well, look, is there any chance that we can get a sample of these patches and try them out first before we get them on?
Nice.
Before we get bring her on the show, because we like to kind of test these things out, So I don't think she has an issue with that. She said it shouldn't be a problem. I just said that we can push back the interview a few weeks until we get the patches. So next week, what we're going to do is, there's an awful lot going on with the 5G. Well, we've asked Mark Steele to come back on because he's been in a court case. He's fighting a court case with a local council saying that 5G is illegal. So, and he's done a lot of footage and video footage that's on YouTube that you go off to Mark Steele's Facebook page, you'll see. So I think it'd be good to get an update on the dangers of 5G and see where we go, what he's doing with the case and his fight with that, because it is apparently illegal, because we talked about it before, the roading out over here in Ireland. So it'd be good to actually see where we can legally stand with it from Mark's point of view, because he's in court fighting a case on at the moment. But that's really it for myself. Do you know who's on PIR?
I'm going to say Barry Prince. I haven't seen that in the chat room there, but Barry is normally up after us, so I'm going to say Barry. And actually, while I have the microphone, I'm going to just give a quick plug for the Three Amigos, as I do. The Three Amigos will be on People's Internet Radio tomorrow evening. That is Monday, the 12th of November. They are going to be on from 9 p.m. to late. And they are going to have Mark Steele on their show for the first hour, and then Lee Garrett for the second hour, talking about paedophilia and his other efforts to stop the paedophiles. So that will be riveting listening tomorrow from 9 on PIR.
Brilliant stuff. Okay, so for myself, Alan James, take it easy. Hopefully next week my cold will be definitely gone for good, and I'll be back to normal. So for myself, take it easy. Have a great week. Catch you later. Bye-bye.
Okay, I'm just going to say to everyone who was on both of the chat rooms tonight, save me typing it all in, but thanks to everyone for tuning in and for being part of the show on the chat rooms there, for our own great group of people on the OYM chat room. You all know who you are, and also for the fantastic group on People's Internet Radio as well. It wouldn't be the same without you. So thanks for sharing your Sunday evening with us. Anyway, we're going to cut the cord here and send it over to Barry Prince. At least I think it's Barry. Up next on PIR. So until the same time next week, take care of yourselves and each other. Bye bye.